Welcome to The Explainer. You know that feeling, right? You spend hours and hours studying, and then the next day, poof, it's all gone. Well, today we're going to crack the code on how to learn anything faster and, more importantly, make it actually stick. This could totally change the way you think about learning. Yeah, we've all been there, staring at a textbook, your eyes glazing over, and just nothing is sinking in. It's so frustrating. But here's a thought. What if the problem isn't you? What if it's not your brain at all, but just your strategy? A lot of the time, learning feels like a struggle simply because we're using the wrong tool for the job. So in this explainer, we're going to build a complete learning toolkit right from scratch. We'll cover the 4 big learning arenas, then we'll get into specific tricks for understanding things, for memorizing stuff, and for practice. And to top it all off, we'll talk about the one thing that can supercharge your motivation. All right, let's jump in. Okay, so first things first. The most important thing to get right off the bat is that not all subjects are created equal. You can't learn physics the same way you learn French. Each one needs its own game plan. And to handle that, we're going to break down any subject you can think of into one of 4 different categories, or arenas. Seriously, this one simple step is the key. It's how you unlock the perfect learning strategy every single time. So what are you trying to learn? Are you trying to wrap your head around big ideas in something like physics? Or are you drowning in a sea of facts for history or law? Maybe you're trying to learn a language or a hands-on skill like math or even coding. Once you know which arena you're in, you can stop wasting time and start using a strategy that, actually works. All right, first up, learning through understanding. For those subjects that are all about grasping deep concepts, we're going to look at a technique from a total genius, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. And this quote right here, it just nails it. The real sign that you've mastered something isn't using a bunch of fancy complicated words. No, it's being able to explain a really complex idea so simply that pretty much anyone can get it. And the magic of this whole technique is in this simple 4-step loop. See, when you force yourself to explain something simply, you immediately find the holes in your own understanding. It's like a built-in error checker for your brain. It makes you face the parts you don't truly get. Let's take an example, like the Lorenz curve from economics. Sounds complicated, right? Well, instead of getting all bogged down in jargon like Gini coefficients, you could explain it with something simple, like sharing a pizza fairly. If you can build that kind of bridge from the complex to the simple, boom, that's when you know you've really got it. Okay, so that's understanding. But what about subjects where you just have to memorize a ton of stuff? Think about history, biology, or law. For those, we need a completely different toolkit. And here's the secret. Your brain is actually terrible at remembering boring, dry text. It's just not how we're wired. But it's amazing at remembering things that are weird or funny or even scary. Things that involve our senses or are part of a good story. We just need to tap into that natural superpower. And there are 2 amazing techniques for this. The first is the memory palace. This method is ancient, like from the time of the Greeks. The other is mnemonics, which are basically clever shortcuts for your brain. The cool thing is, they both do the same thing. They turn boring abstract facts into something solid and unforgettable. So, the memory palace. Think of it like this. You're building a virtual museum in your mind. The layout of the museum is a place you know really, really well, like your house. And then you fill this museum with the craziest, most bizarre exhibits you can imagine. And each of those weird exhibits, that's a piece of information you need to remember. This example just brings it to life. Let's say you need to memorize the periodic table. Imagine walking up to your front door, but you can't see because the sun is so bright. That's hydrogen. You get inside and walk into the kitchen, and it's filled with thousands of floating balloons. That's helium. Then you trip and fall over a huge pile of batteries left on the floor. That's lithium. See how that works? The crazier and more vivid you make the story, the better you'll remember it. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the just do it categories. These are the subjects where reading a book about it just isn't going to cut it. We're talking about skills where the only path to getting good is through consistent hands-on practice. When it comes to learning a language, or things like math and accounting, there's really only one trick in the book. You have to do it. I mean, you wouldn't read a book on swimming and then expect to win an Olympic medal, right? At some point, you've got to jump in the pool. So the big idea here is to lead with action. If you're learning a language, just dive in every day, even if it's only for 10 minutes. And for stuff like math, here's a pro tip. Don't get hung up on the theory at first. Instead, look at problems that are already solved. Once you start to see the patterns and how they work, it becomes so much easier to go back and understand the why behind it all. Okay, so we've got all these incredible techniques, but let's be honest. What do you do when a subject is just plain boring? Well, this final tip is kind of the secret sauce. It can turn even the dullest topic into a really fascinating journey. Ever find your mind wandering while you're trying to study? The next time that happens, just stop and ask yourself this one simple question. Because a lot of the time when we lose interest, it's because we've lost our sense of purpose. You gotta go deeper. Don't just learn what something is, find out why it is. Look into its history. Who invented this stuff? What problem were they trying to fix? When you do that, you connect to the human story behind the facts, and that's what really sparks your curiosity. Think about something like the stock market. On the surface, it just seems like a bunch of boring charts and numbers. But then you dig into its history, and you realize it was created to fund these massive, world-changing adventures and build entire nations. All of a sudden, it's not boring anymore. It's this incredible human story. That context changes everything. And really, that's the bottom line. Finding your genuine interest is the most powerful learning accelerator there is. Once you find that why, your motivation comes from inside you. You're not just cramming for an exam anymore. You're on a personal quest for knowledge. And trust me, that is an unstoppable force. So let's wrap this all up. You now have a complete strategic toolkit. You know how to figure out what type of subject you're dealing with, you have the right technique for it, and you know how to feel it all by finding your curiosity. You're ready to tackle pretty much anything. So with all these tools at your disposal, the only real question left is, what are you going to choose to learn next?